I'm Brittany Fisher, part of the Student Executive Committee this week, helping run Startup Week. And I'm here today to introduce our moderator, Matt Brezina, who is a State College local and a graduate of Penn State from the Schreier's Onage College from 2003, which is impressive in itself, in addition to being one of Penn State's most successful tech entrepreneurs, starting successful businesses such as Sincerely and Zabni. And he is here today with a bunch of panelists that he will introduce you to. But let's all give it up for Matt Brezina.
Thank you and good morning. So I'm so excited to be here today. One, because I love coming back to Penn State and I get so energized by meeting students and hearing about what people are working on. But I'm even more energized because we've been doing this Startup Week thing for about 10 years. But never before have I been able to bring three amazing founders that I personally love working with up on stage together and just talk to them about their journey and their businesses. So I run a small venture fund now. It's called 4th Street Ventures. And after building several software companies, now what I do is I look for the next great founders. Over the last 14 years, I've invested in over 90 companies. And I'm proud to say that these three founders and their businesses are all in my venture fund. So my venture fund has backed their businesses and they're all Penn State entrepreneurs. And I can't tell you guys how exciting that is to me because 10 years ago when Startup Week was starting, or 20 years ago when I graduated, I don't think this was happening. So there's an ecosystem being built. There's a network being formed that I'm so excited about here. So what I wanted to do today was have these guys kind of tell you a bit about their business and their journey and themselves. And, for students to kind of see that, hey, these guys are not that far ahead of you, and this is a path that you could go on. So I'll start with Tom, closest to me, if you want to grab the mic. Tom's the founder of Gisual, and I want to just go through a couple questions that cover your background. So first, tell us what the company is. What do you guys do? Who do you sell to?
Yep. Hey, everyone. So Tom, Gisual, we provide infrastructure intelligence to telcos. So, Windstream, Verizon, AT&T, when they have outages, what we do is we tell them the reason for their outage with automation.
Cool. And what year did you graduate? What did you major in?
2014, and I graduated studying telecommunications. So
I didn't know that. And then, so you graduated 2014. When did you start the company?
So we've been at it for about 2.5 years.
Okay, 2019. So 5 years in between, you went out and did what?
So I tried a lot of stuff. Most of it didn't work. No, but when I first graduated, I did a solo project and I wrote a book. It was moderately successful, made it an Amazon bestseller, but it didn't make any money, and so I had to get a real job. And so I got a real job selling Yellow Page ads. And so I'm selling Yellow Page ads, and basically what I was able to do with my buddy is we created a sales system, and the sales system started working. And so this drone technology company came up to me and said, hey, can you implement this drone technology at our place? And so I said, sure. And so I did that, basically working for free, but loving it. And what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to sell to telecommunication companies. So that's actually where I came up with the idea for Gisual. We would deploy drones after storms. So instead of driving, boots on the ground after a storm when there's floods, we would fly the drones and tell them what was happening. But what I really realized was that when there's an outage, whether it's after a storm or every day, all of these telecommunication companies like Verizon and AT&T and Comcast have to work together live to say, hey, who has the outage? What's going on here? So that's how it all came together, and that's what was in between.
I love finding that when I meet founders and they have this unique insight on an industry that the average person's not going to know to go solve. And so it's cool to hear Tom's journey. And I think you'll probably find with most of us entrepreneurs, we don't kind of fit a LinkedIn page very well. A lot of what we do is rubbing sticks together and creating our own path. So, Tom, are you comfortable sharing what's your revenue run rate, or are we keeping that?
Yeah. So revenue just about 2 million this year.
In 2.5 years, up to $2 million run rate. And how much capital have you raised?
So we raised 3.5.
Okay. And then I want to hear a little bit about your funding journey. So you started this company 2.5 years ago. Did you bootstrap for a while before you raised your first money?
Yeah. So what we did was we bootstrapped for a little bit, like working nights and weekends, and just kind of got me and my buddy got the product up and running. And then we got some people to use it. I mean, getting like the first customer, I think they were paying us like $200, and it felt like, all the money in the world. So a little bit of bootstrapping, and then
Who'd you raise your first money from?
and then I called Matt Brezina, right? So good guy to call when you have excited customers, and you got to squint to see it, but promise. And yeah, he squinted.
And we had been in touch for how long between meeting or kind of reconnecting and then writing the check?
Not long.
Was it,
Reconnecting and writing the. I mean,
was it within 2-3 months?
yeah.
So that's, just so you know, like if you're going to go raise money from somebody, I love to see this kind of traction. They had their first couple customers. I believed in Tom. He had a great co-founder, and I just needed to see that little bit of customer traction. And that's when I personally like to make a bet. You'll meet other VCs that are here this week who invest at different stages, but I like to get involved really early. And hopefully this kind of gives you a good idea of the journey from leaving college and getting into your first startup. Let's move on to Joe. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Matt.
Can you tell everybody in the room, what your company does? Who do you sell to?
Yeah, so we are building a new health plan purposely built for the hourly employee. And it's driven by this vertically integrated direct primary care experience that's super delightful. Our providers will either see you virtually or come to your home for a visit, which is this mind-blowing, experience. But we're specifically focused on the hourly worker. And you think about the hourly worker, they generally make too much to qualify for Medicaid and to afford comprehensive health insurance, so they're stuck in the middle. And the reason why me and actually like most of our Eng team, Dan, Codes, and Tyler, we all sort of met at the launch box when we were still in school, and we just love building for the sake of building. But it just so happens at Vitable that when we build, we get to help people live longer. And in Philly, where we're based, like the life expectancy between 2 zip codes 5 miles apart is like 20 years. There's a 20-year difference in life expectancy. And so by making, and it's not rocket science, it's just, lack of accessible preventative care. And so if we succeed over the next decade, we'll help our members live an average of 5 years longer, which I think is like a really compelling way to spend my time. Anyway, sorry for the quick ramble.
It's awesome. I don't think that mission is on the website, or at least I don't remember seeing it.
No.
And I think that's a really cool, compelling story. You kind of threw me a little bit off track here because I just loved hearing that. But again, this is another one of those companies where a founder had a unique insight on an industry. And this is that Joe's family ran a business that had hundreds of hourly workers. And so he saw this gap. Again, this is a compelling reason why I chose to back this company as, great founder, but with a unique insight on an industry. So I think he really understands that customer, and it was really cool to hear about the mission. What year did you graduate?
I was going to graduate in 2019.
Okay. And what did you do between leaving Penn State and starting your first company? Or not your first company, starting Vitable.
So I left. I studied computer engineering while I was at Penn State. I'd interned for 3 summers at Microsoft on Xbox. I'd gotten my full-time offer, and it was a year and a half into the future, the start date. So I had a year and a half to figure something out or go back to school and get my degree and go back to Xbox. And so I left school. I think I had a semester left, and I wanted before that I'd worked on with codes actually on a blockchain thing that eventually failed. As I thought through what do I want to I love building for the sake of building, but what do I spend my time building next? I wanted to do something where I felt I had an unfair advantage, something that was really difficult, so that no one else could easily launch. So I spent a year in the wilderness. I called 2019 my year in the wilderness, where I just tried to make it work. And then, but at the core of it, it was on-demand urgent care. You get sick, you get a nurse practitioner to come to your home. You pay, at the time, I think $79 or something, and just struggled to find a way to make it work. It wasn't working. Got a kiosk at the mall selling like $79 urgent care visit. Like it just wasn't working. But eventually, 2020 as 2020 was coming around, something clicked with the pandemic, and then it got into IC, and the rest I think is sort of history. I never went back to school.
A little plug, Joe was involved with Launchbox and was backed by the Summer Founders Program for, what was the company?
I think it was called What's Poppin'. I wanted to get invited to parties, but no one ever used it. It failed.
The classic student startup, which is usually around partying and drinking and waiting in lines for bars. That's cool, Joe. And I want to ask you the same question I asked Tom, which is, who gave you your first money for Vitable?
So, I guess I think I got 5,000 or so from some student competitions here at Penn State. But the first, I guess, investor was Y Combinator. I'd applied the 3 years before. I'd always get the interview flown in on my birthday and get rejected on my birthday the last 2 years. So it was a little sad, but the third time I did get in. But I think at the end, I got the same interviewer. And I think at that time, they just felt bad.
Who was that? Who was the
Aaron Epstein.
Okay.
I think he just felt bad. He kept seeing me coming back. So
Wait, was it the fourth time that you got in?
The third time.
Third time, wow.
Third time.
I did not know that either. That's cool.
But I think my general story has been people. I need a few at bats for someone to be like, okay, I guess I take a chance on this kid. But I didn't really care why they let me in. They let me in, and it was a game changer for us.
Yeah, huge. Well, that's awesome. Okay, well, let's pass the mic over to Chevy. I don't need to tell you, but this is another one of our successful Penn State alums who also spent a lot of time at the Launchbox and was backed by the Summer Founders Program. So the same paths that are sitting right ahead of you, that's what these guys followed. So Chevy, tell us about Moichor. What do you guys do? Who do you sell to?
Yeah. Do you guys have like cats and dogs? Do a lot of people have cats and dogs? Awesome. So yeah, I think like 70% of US households have cats and dogs now. And when you go to the veterinarian, one of the things you get done is blood work. And the current methods are really old and expensive, and they don't catch everything. And so we just provide a better blood work experience. So we service veterinarians all over the country. They send us blood samples, fecal samples, urine samples, and we just use AI models to process it, which is more affordable and also more accurate.
So this business is doing really well. It's really exciting. It's interesting because, the first two companies you heard from, they came up with their business ideas, after college. Joe pretty quickly after college, Tom, 4 years. But Chevy's business, interestingly, came out of a student project first.
Yeah, we tried to do a test called the CBC, or complete blood count from your smartphone. And we got as far as getting an IRB approved study at Hershey, but we failed. It was way too hard. But that failure allowed us to discover the pet space, being that there's no regulation, it's much cheaper to get into. And so, yeah, we tried to do it off of that, and we went through the Launchbox, the Summer Founders Program. We used all the resources for that, but then we pivoted when we graduated.
And when he says we, another cool fact about this team is there's 3 co-founders and they're all Penn Staters. So 2 of them met in biology, and then the other one was a grad student in comp sci.
Yep.
And did you guys move in together in State College?
Yeah. So when we graduated, we we set up shop in an apartment in Oakland. You know, mattresses on the ground. We lived with each other, worked with each other, and we still live with each other. So
And they live like basically across the street from their lab and office. Yeah, incredible story. So, how much capital have you guys raised?
we're just about under $11 million in capital raised.
So you've raised the most actually of the group here, I think. Joe, how much have you raised? 10. Okay, just barely beat them.
That's not a good thing. It means more dilution. So
Yeah, it's true.
It's not a competition to win.
No, I know. But the title of this is funding and scaling your startup. So people do want to hear about funding. So who did you get your first check from outside of the university?
Outside of Penn State? Well, a alumni, I don't know if you know John Patton. We used to make trips out to San Francisco during the weekend every semester. And we met with John. He introduced us to an angel investor there who gave us our first $100,000. We talked through, he would call me every week during our last semester. And then I was like, we're going to move out to San Francisco. Do you have money? And he gave us $100,000.
It's awesome. I was getting Chevy's updates for a long time. He was always, I was helpful. I was trying to be helpful and, checking out their updates. But it wasn't until really this summer that I actually became an investor in the company. So I'd kind of known you for 4 years before I first wrote the check in.
Yeah, you made us work for it, Matt.
Well, I wish I would have got in earlier because I would have paid a cheaper price. Chevy, what financing of your business really changed the trajectory of the company the most?
I would say after we raised, so we did YC2, and after we raised that seed round of 4.2 million, because when we went into YC, we had our first 10 customers, and then during YC, we grew, our customer load, and so we knew kind of the levers, and we raised that 4.2 million. It's just a matter of spending money and still experimenting, but that money allowed us to. It wasn't just Matt, Tang, and I. We could hire reps, we could hire engineers, we could hire a lot more people. And so that's what changed it.
And you've learned a lot in fundraising now, having raised $11 million. What lessons would you want to share with this group about?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned personally is you really got to raise how much you need and plus a little more, but don't go overboard. And also, I think it's important, what investors you're talking to, because as I look back, certain types of investors will put pressures on you that are difficult to achieve. So like, for instance, if we'd taken that 4.2 million and we only had 2 customers, we would have to prove a lot in that round. Whereas we had a certain foundation. And so I think one thing I learned is just don't raise the right amount that will get you to those next milestones and make sure those milestones are achievable. That's
how about Joe or Tom? Do either of you guys have a tip or thing you've learned about fundraising you'd like to share?
I mean, Joe's got to share too, man, because that's good. That's a lot to raise, and that's hard to do. To raise that level of capital is difficult, right?
But let's be honest. For you though, like you wouldn't even take, if I tried to give you more money right now, you'd be like, I don't need it.
Maybe, but I think the thing that I would say also is you have, looking back, it's raise money from people the first round. I nailed it, but like people that you admire, because they're going to give you advice, and that's like the biggest thing. Like it's actually like a hack on like growing yourself, because like the people, like when you get investors like a Matt, like he's like, okay, man, I'm gonna help. And then you just learn so much. So it's like, if you want to learn from somebody, ask them to be an investor. That's like the core key thing. And then also the last thing is like, just get different perspectives. So like you might, it's a slight nuance, but having someone in consumer, having someone, we sell an enterprise SaaS business, like a data company, having someone that has done it, like they have a playbook, they have done it in enterprise SaaS. And maybe they've raised a little bit of money, and then someone else that's raised a lot of money. Like that's what I like. And then you ask them questions and you get a lot of perspective. So find people you admire and get a lot of perspective. Perspective's key.
Joe, any fundraising tips or ideas? Things you've learned in the process?
I think maybe like if I was going, if I think for most people it's probably worthwhile listening to Chevy and Tom. I'm bad at selling, and so like my entire like the optimization like with raising money, the optimization for me is maximize the leverage that I have, so that because I find it difficult to sell a dream, but when we do have conviction, or what I have conviction about where we're going, it's not selling, it's more me sharing how excited I am, and I ramble a lot, so the team would know, but I'm so with YC, you know, they saw me 3 times, they finally let me in, let us in at the end. After YC, we raised 1.6 million, and then we raised 8 million or so at the end of October 2021 from an intro from Matt, actually, first round. And I think for us, it's been a like raising. I think the best piece of advice that someone gave me was like raise it at a local maxima. So wait until like you have a ton of momentum, and then like use that momentum to raise. And I wanted to spend the least amount of time raise at great terms or good terms, and then get back to building. And you know, the investors, at least like net like investors, like you know, they could be harmful. Like it's really easy for them to harm the business, but the best ones like Matt maybe will help the business, but they're not going to build a great business or product for us. And so I think that has helped with the optimization problem around if we could only do one thing, it's build a great business, and then everything will take care of itself. But you know, this is coming from someone that sucks at selling. Like if you were great at selling, I think there'd be like better advice. But for me, like it's go heads down, build a great business for our clients and members, and then you know, lift my head up and see who would be excited to partner with us for that next phase. Like going into YC and even first round saw me 3 times before they gave me money. So it's been a like momentum has generally been my way of proving that like we'll do what we said we'd do, and then building trust that way.
I think you've done a good job of it. This conversation makes me think about I kind of learned this probably 5 years into my career. There's like 2 incredible points of leverage you can use. If you got, you know, everybody in here is interested in entrepreneurship, which kind of means you're going to set your own destination. It's about, you know, funding your own lifestyle out of your own work. And there's 2 incredible pieces of or points of leverage that most people use. One is technology. That's why we encourage you all to learn how to write software, you know, study engineering, build things. And the other one is capital. And, you know, if I think about Joe and what he's speaking to, I think he's actually raised capital quite well, but he's approached it differently because he said he's not good at sales. So he's actually approached it in terms of just prioritizing this other leverage he has in technology and building great product. I actually think it can inform what type of business you build. So when I started my first company out of college, I liked hardware a lot, but hardware companies are very hard to capitalize. Software companies aren't. So if you're young, this is your first company, like I'd probably push you towards building a software company because you're not going to need as much capital, and you're probably not going to be that great at raising capital yet. Whereas, you know, some of these founders I know that have sold their company for $1 billion, access to capital is a huge point of leverage for them in building their next business. So it's something, you know, that relates to your journey out of college into entrepreneurship. Okay, so I wanted to do one more round of questions on the other piece of this. We talked a lot about funding your startup. Now I want to talk about scaling your startup. So I'm going to ask each of you one question about that. Maybe with Tom, how did you, so a big part of scaling, one is like scaling revenue and customers. The other one is scaling your team. And so I'm curious how you met your co-founder and how'd you get them to join you?
Oh, that's a great question. So actually, I met my co-founder pretty unconventionally, but he's a local guy. He worked at a company called AWeber, so he was running deliverability. He was the director of deliverability at AWeber, and he was like he had his own. Previously, he had his own like software shop, and he was like a network engineer. So he was like the perfect guy for this like thing. And I saw that, so I reached out to him. Didn't know him.
On LinkedIn?
Yeah, reached out to him and we built a relationship about this idea, like just jammed on the idea. And this was like a while back, right? And then we started to say, you know what? Like, and we're like local, we're like, let's just like throw in, let's try and like build this out together. And we started hacking away at it and then putting it in front of people. And it happened organically, just meeting someone new. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, usually what I find is people are co-founding a company with people they've known for a long time. But I mean, I think you guys are incredible partners. I love this guy, Robin.
Amazing.
Yeah, and you guys are. One thing you also find in co-founding teams is usually complementary skills. So these guys, Tom's really strong on sales and loves product and knows the customer really well. Robin is really strong on technology, loves product. These guys meet in the middle, but they peak in terms of skills on these two opposite dimensions. And those make for great co-founding teams. Okay, how about over to Chevy? So you're doing animal blood testing. Who's your first customer? How'd you meet them? How'd you get them to pay and use for your product?
Yeah, so our first customer was in Chicago. He's an interesting guy, actually, but I think I emailed him for over a year. Just, every month, you got to be persistent. So just kept emailing him, and I think he got tired of it. And so what I used to do is I would fly out to all these clinics. So I'd actually do like SFO, red eye, so I don't have to pay the hotel, and I'd fly back the same day. And so I just flew out, just pitched the dream to him, and he thought he gave it a shot. But it's just I would put a little tracker. Every day I would track how many emails I sent out. And if I didn't send out at least like 50 or 60 cold emails, it was a failure. So that's how we got our first person.
For like a year, you were sending 50 emails.
I mean, we were hunched up in that apartment, and so we had to get someone. And there's some, it took some time to get the service up and running. I think we actually launched that first clinic in like May 2021. And we lost them in a few months, and we learned from it, and we got,
I love it. You're just seeing persistence, failure, standing up again, people knowing their own weaknesses, optimizing just for success. And that's what you find in founders is this incredible self-motivated drive. Like anybody up here, like, they're going to work better for themselves than for another person. And there's very few people that have this level of self-motivation and drive. Okay, and then final question for Joe, and then we'll do some audience questions. Joe, what scaling challenges are you guys working on right now? What part of the business? What's got your mind?
So we're at 3.5 million in annual, I guess, run rate, and we're going to get to 10 by the end of the year. And the way we just launched our first, we just launched this new. Before this year, we were direct primary care membership. This year, we launched our first an ACA compliant minimal essential coverage plan, and going from like, hey, we're thinking about doing this to selling it was about 3 months, which was really amazing pace of movement from the team. But we were also coming from, in September, we laid off a third of the team, and then, or a fourth of the team, and then all in a third of the team. Some people quit right after, and it was really painful. And of the people that stuck by, they did so at great personal cost, because it was, I mean, we worked harder, longer, like faster. Like it was just, there's no, it was the most painful period of the company. And the reason we did the layoffs is we'd slowed down. We'd lost this, and this is my perspective, but it's been shared by the people that were along the company as well. But like our competitive advantage up to now has been our pace of movement. And so the challenge, I think, has been like going back to the launch box. Like the reason how I met Dan, Codes, and Tyler was like I'd sleep at the launch box some evenings, or I'd stay at the launch box up to late in the evening, and I'd meet Codes, who was also writing code, and like it was like we just worked really hard. We didn't have to be the best or be experts, but because we optimized for pace of movement, we'd learn quickly, and we lost that completely. So I think the core of the core challenge for us as we've added more people has been like just that like there's no substitute for working extremely hard, regardless of how good you are. And if you want to have great impact, at least I believe you must work like both harder, longer, and be like better than like you also have to be good in addition to working extremely hard. And I think we lost that. And so now, like as we get this at bat, we've grown. We've doubled over the last 5 months, and it was willed to existence in many ways. But it's like I don't also want people to burn out because they're working 20 hours a day, and it's that balance. So I guess like it's like this like it's an idea mostly. Like the challenge is like how do we get people to like how do we not lose that like aggressive passion for building, like but also not burn out while doing it.
The mission you talked about earlier, I think, is one of the ways that companies continue to have that level of drive, because what they're working on is so meaningful. And it's something that can scale beyond you having a one-on-one conversation with somebody. Like it becomes, and to look for things inside the company that reinforce that culture. And this is like how you spend volunteers days as a company, or how you name products, or but I think every great founder wants to keep that level of intensity that you have in the beginning when you're a small team, just like huddled around one pizza box. It's pretty cool. All right, so these guys you can probably tell they all work incredibly hard. Like while they were sitting here, they probably got 20 new emails. And so this is it's like a really special opportunity that they're here to speak with you all. So I want to open it up to the audience to ask questions of these incredible founders. So let's see some hands, and I'll start right here in the middle.
I want to ask all three of you, could your companies exist today if you hadn't raised capital? And if yes, what do you think it would look like?
I'll repeat the question. Would your companies exist today if you hadn't raised capital? And if not, what was it?
What do you think they would look like?
What do you think they would look like if you couldn't raise capital?
So I believe it would exist, but it wouldn't be at the rate at which it's going, nor we would have the resources that we have. So I think the venture capital, it accelerates things. So yes, it would exist, but much smaller than what we have. And I don't remember was that the?
That's it. But like truly, Chevy, I mean, like to go do blood tests, didn't you guys need to buy some machines?
Yeah, so I guess you're right. I didn't really have a credit score, so I wouldn't have been able to get a loan or anything.
Like you needed $100,000 machines to even get off the ground.
Yeah, I think in that space, there's probably close to $500,000 or $600,000 just in capital equipment. So it played a very, very critical role. Like if we didn't raise venture capital, we would have to work Uber like every evening just to pay for that device for like 2 years. and that's not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, no way. I just wouldn't have the guts to. I mean, we had personally invested money. I wouldn't have the guts to kind of go that level. So no, just wouldn't have worked.
You don't even have to answer this one if you don't want. We'll maybe ask another question. I'm sorry. Just sometimes when I'm moderating a panel, I'm like, I don't want everybody answering the same question. So I want to get around to new questions. Let me just give you the mic so I don't have to repeat it.
Was there any mistake you made after receiving the funding?
Joe will definitely admit.
Yes. I on the optimizing for pace of movement, the reason is like I often make like a lot of mistakes, but if I move quickly enough, like I can fix them before we die. So we have made a ton of mistakes. Like we hired the wrong people. We spent money on like we screwed up. Like I think I've probably made at least once most mistakes that like you from but like luckily we've fixed them and hope like we'll make new mistakes as opposed to making the same old mistakes. But yes, like we make a ton of mistakes.
I'd say the biggest mistake was after each round, I feel like there's a transition period for the first few months where you need to learn a lot of new things. And I think especially, I think we were talking about this outside, but after this round, like at Moichor, it's not so much a difficulty to sell to get people to use us. Now it's more of an efficiency and a metrics base. And so the role transitions, and as a founder, you always have to learn and keep ahead of that curve. At some point, you can't always react. So that's one of my biggest lessons or mistakes.
It's funny. My friend Jamie Siminoff, who started Ring, the video doorbell, refuses to use the word mistake inside his companies, and they're called learnings. I think that's an important perspective. Let's see. Questions from this side of the room?
When did you decide to get the funding? Like, when did you decide it's time to raise? Was it like after gaining first customers, or?
I guess for me, it wasn't more like it wasn't me deciding if I was ready. It was more like, it's always been like, are we made enough progress that someone's maybe a little crazy enough to take a bet on us? So it's less me, like and more like every so often I'll have conversations to gauge like the excitement level on whether like we have enough momentum to get someone to raise that next round, even Y Combinator. So it's seldom I decide, and more like if we hit the benchmarks to be able to. And so like part of for my sanity, focusing on the business would so that I don't have to go crazy thinking whether we're ready or not.
Yeah, and I'll just say like, because it's also probably like where you're asking like, hey, I have an idea. Do I want to fund that? I think it's important to realize that like, you just playing it out, right? Like you're going to probably spend like, let's say you build a business, you get funded, you might spend 10, 15, 10 years of your life. So I don't know how old you are, maybe 21. So then you're going to get to 31 doing this thing. You know what I mean? So you want to know you're going to spend your time somewhere pretty good. And if you take funding, you have a big responsibility to that funder. Yeah. So I think it's easier. So the worst time to think you're ready is when you have like a good idea with nothing, and then it's got to be something real. Like people are using it even for free, but like you have to put like this is what I believe. Many people don't believe. Many people don't believe this, but like some people do. But what I believe is you need something real, like literally real, where like you can tell your parents and your parents are like, yeah. And you could tell yourself, like, this is real. And I think at that level, if you believe it, then other people will. But if you don't even believe it, then like,
All right, I'm gonna do a question from the back. And it's pretty funny because this is an anonymous question from Zoom. This is probably not a question somebody would ask in person. So I will ask it. It's pretty funny. Okay, so they're like 10 or 11 million run rate. Top line is for vanity. Bottom line is for sanity. My question is, what is the bottom line profit percentage, if any?
Is it a riddle?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny. So I guess they want to hear, we talked about where your top line revenue is. We didn't talk about like how much profit you're making. So, it's actually is a good question. And I'll kind of answer in advance for you to say, one thing that you can afford to do in a venture-backed company is invest in growth ahead of profit. That's what we're investing in. We want you to go capture a market. And so we're willing to, invest in it. Like technology is expensive. Engineers are expensive. Like you will build for a while without making profit. So we usually will care about top line revenue. But how do you guys, does anybody have a thought about, actually, Chevy, this is a great one for you to answer. Because Chevy has a cost that they're constantly optimizing to drive more and more profit out of their contracts. So maybe mention the airport thing and
Yeah, I think you got to know your levers, right? So you know your COGS, you know what the two biggest COGS are, or the
COGS
cost of
mean
goods, cost of goods into your margin. And so I think when we first started off, I remember it really vividly because our investors got really scared because the margin was like 20 or 30%. It's not that anymore. But when you first start, you're just trying to make money, but you need to know where those costs are going to, and you can optimize those costs over time. So for instance, like we have a plan to get to, we have a hardware business. We have a plan to get to 70% plus blended gross margins. And as long as you show a plan for that and it's about resource allocation. So you're allocating your resources to getting your margins there. My personal belief is margins aren't really important in the first 2-3 years. Maybe now more than ever they are, but you got to drive to it.
any other thoughts on margins?
I guess I have a slightly, or at least we've built Vitable slightly differently. We don't have any upfront fixed costs, but we do have, we are sending providers to your home, or rather, like providers are, and our target from day zero was to get to, was like at least the target that we've continued to reinforce over the last 3 years has been 70% gross margin as we've grown, and partly it's like. I always worry that I'll buy my own, like I'll drink the Kool-Aid around like how things will evolve, and then they don't end up evolving that way, and then we will end up not building a great business. At least for us, like that's been a up to now continued to be, but maybe it might change in the future.
Cool. All right, we are about at we're at time, so I think there was one more question, but we'll have to hold that for later. I think at least one or two of these guys might be here with us at 4:15. I'm moderating another panel with two venture capitalist Penn Staters that are here visiting as well. So please make sure to come back for that. And thank you all for listening. And you at home on Zoom, thank you for your awesome anonymous riddles. All right. Thank you all.